Welcome back to CGI U Stories 2011. I'm joined by Jackie and Salman from Johns Hopkins University, and they're going to tell us a little bit more about their commitment this year, Women Need Women, which actually made it to the Final Four in our bracket, but unfortunately had a devastating loss, I think, yesterday.
It was just today, a couple of hours ago.
This afternoon. Yeah. What happened?
It came down to, we had approximately 50% of the vote, both us and the school fund from Brown University, but it came down to actual individual votes. So it's okay. We're still going to proceed with the with the plan.
Such a close game.
Yeah. So
heartbreaking.
It's okay.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit more just from you guys about what it is that you're doing, and then what inspired you to do this work.
So we started out on kind of two separate paths. We were both at Hopkins as undergraduates. Salman is now at medical school in Texas, and I'm doing some graduate classes at Hopkins. But I had gotten started with working with refugee youth in Baltimore City as an undergraduate, and as I came into some graduate classes, I was working with School of Nursing at Hopkins, and they have a research study going on with a female domestic violence program in Baltimore City called House of Ruth. And so that's where my interest in women and domestic violence started. And I also had some studies that I did in school in the Middle East. And I kind of combined all my interests and really figured out that I wanted to pursue something with women in the Middle East and in refugee camps. And so that's kind of where this idea came together.
And how about you? What was the genesis for you?
For me, I was always interested in community health and public health, I started a dialysis clinic in Hyderabad, Pakistan, and I knew of the work that Jackie was doing, and I was also working in local communities within Baltimore City to try and really use asset-based development to not necessarily find out what all the problems in a community were, but what all their strengths were, so that we could really work with the community to empower them so that they can kind of help themselves and work within their own individual communities to help solve their own problems. So we used both of those ideas and passions to create Women Need Women.
So tell us what Women Need Women is.
Well, the idea is that women empower themselves and empower each other. And with the project that we've started, we're trying to develop a system where we can distribute solar-powered portable DVD players to women in refugee camps. And by doing so, we would also provide instruction on how to use those DVD players. They're easy to use. They don't require literacy because obviously literacy is an issue for refugee populations and low-income populations.
So it's the DVD players, and is their television is
it's just like we have the just at any store a 10-inch combo DVD player with the TV screen, and except the only difference is that these are solar powered, and so they can use them actually in the refugee camps.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we wanted to be able to give these women the opportunity to have an education, and not just have an education for themselves, but then distribute that educational opportunity to the women around them. And we didn't want it to be something based on a patriarchal system where you have someone come in and say, we're going to give you this opportunity and we're going to give it to all these other women. Rather, we give you this opportunity and then it's yours to own. And you go ahead and distribute it to the rest of your community and create a network of women.
And so a lot of our ideas were kind of pulled from the Aga Khan Development Network, where in cities in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, they would approach really just one community and teach them a skill, but only on the promise that that group would go teach the next village or the next community that same skill. So if it were how to bring a proper water irrigation system to their community, they would help the next community build their own. And then that community would help the next community build their own. And so this can go from initially teaching 5 people to teaching 2,000 people and empowering the community within themselves without us as an organization having to be there consistently for years and years and years to monitor everything. Because once you put the power back into people's hands, they literally take ownership, and it's something of theirs that they care about that we don't necessarily have to be there in order to see that it comes to complete fruition. We wanted to take the same idea and start with one group of women in a refugee camp and have them educate more and more and more women.
So help me understand what the content on the DVDs is then.
So the DVDs would consist of basic educational content, mostly regarding female and child nutrition, female and child health issues in a broader context. One particular issue that we would like to address is the problem of domestic violence in refugee camps and how women don't have a protection system there because they're not even in their own country. And this would be an opportunity to empower them and give them the tools to really educate themselves on what their rights are as women.
And it can also be some things as simple as here in the United States, doctors don't necessarily tell women who are pregnant that they need to take folic acid because folic acid is so prevalent in all the foods that we do eat. But abroad, and especially in third world countries, you have doctors that need to instruct women to take folic acid, and folic acid is not something that's expensive. It's just a matter of the information being dispersed to the women that they need to take folic acid in order to make sure that they're born with their babies are born with fully developed brains, and that they're able to come to a full-term pregnancy successfully, and especially when you are in a refugee camp, not only are you out of your country and away from maybe the doctor that you might be seeing, but you're away from a lot of these resources, and you don't necessarily know what the right questions to ask are in the first place. So it's more difficult to obtain that information, much less disperse that information. So something as simple as making sure that women understand that in order to have a fully healthy baby, it's important to take something as small, as cheap as folic acid, and they can disperse that information to other women. So we're really hoping that these are, simple as well as complicated issues, but just the idea of getting that information out there and women really being empowered to help other women in that same regard is just a very strong tool.
Curious to know who you had do these instructional videos. Were they folks that you knew? And
we're actually looking for people right now to help us with those. We have an idea of what the materials we want to include in those videos. We have 2 organizations we're trying to partner up with in Jordan in order to create this educational system, because we do want to include Jordanian locals who will help with 2 pilot projects there. And so that's kind of our next step.
That's exciting. So you have a road ahead of you.
Yes,
we do. But a really good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for speaking with us. Appreciate it.
And best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.